be having a quick broadcast, we are going to have a quick overview on Mazen Nnamdi Kanu's case. A quick, very quick overview on the case of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. And those of you who are comparing the activities of the Ekperima in Finland and are equating it with the activities of Nnamdi Kanu, it is very important that you understand the difference between those two people, those two individuals. And now, I have said that before, and I'm going to say it again. There are a lot of differences between the activities of Ekperima in Finland and Nnamdi Kanu. You cannot compare those two. Never. You can never compare those two activities. Reason being that Ekperima in Finland was arrested in Europe, where human rights are respected, where human rights are not violated. It is imperative for us to understand that Nnamdi Kanu was kidnapped in 2021, right? Extraordinary rendition from Kenya to Nigeria. And we're going to be looking into that case and understanding the intricacies behind this stay of execution and the human rights abuse that we have actually witnessed when it comes to the case of Nnamdi Kanu. We are going to go deep to understand exactly what's going on with that case, because of course we can see the challenge that Nnamdi Kanu threw at the Nigerian law students or Nigerian young lawyers, that if anyone will show him in the Nigeria Constitution where the treatment method on him or the stay of execution is permitted or is supported by the Constitution, in an event where the court of law has already discharged a case that he actually promised to give that lawyer ₦1 million. And of course, that's exactly the review that I have gone through to find out whether or not there is a part of Nigeria Constitution that will indeed support the stay of execution in an event such as that of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. So it is important that we understand the importance of court decision. The importance of the court decision, because the court has already made a decision, the appeal court has made a decision that Mazen Nnamdi Kanu must be is discharged and acquitted from every charges leveled against him, because Nigeria court has no jurisdiction over the case that is being leveled against him, over trying Nnamdi Kanu in a court of law. The appeal court talks about jurisdiction because we all are aware that in a situation whereby an individual is extraordinary rendition from one country to another, it is a violation of international treaty, and it is a violation of the right of that individual, because the individual might not get a fair trial through immediately when they are extraordinary rendition. It means that they are not going to get a fair trial, because if they were to get a fair trial, the trial must start from the host nation. But instead, Nnamdi Kanu was kidnapped because we all are aware that Nnamdi Kanu is a citizen of Britain, and he was in Britain all this while preaching his gospel for freedom and secession, and preaching gospel for equity and fairness, preaching against human rights abuses that is taking place in Nigeria over the years since 2015. If Nnamdi Kanu was perceived to be a fugitive, I believe that the first world countries such as Britain will get him arrested, but they saw that Nnamdi Kanu was actually making use of his human rights and discharging or actually taking advantage of the right that is enshrined in the United Nations Charter. One moment. One moment. All those laws were violated. What the hell? All those laws were violated by the Nigeria state in cahoot with the Kenya government under the regime of Uhuru Kenyatta. Because all these things transpired during the time of Uhuru Kenyatta as a president of Kenya. Nigeria, Nnamdi Kanu traveled all the way from Britain to Kenya, where he went on a mission or a meeting, and Nigeria government went into Kenya to kidnap and extraordinary rendition him, which is against international treaty, which is actually, hold on one moment. This light is just misbehaving. So which is actually what is called violation of international law and treaty that governs rendition or extradition. Nigeria did not go through a due process in order to rendition Nnamdi Kanu. Instead, they went through the back door to rendition Nnamdi Kanu, which is going to nullify the jurisdiction of Nigeria court over the matter. That's the reason why you find the Nigeria judiciary, the likes of a court of as an appeal court of Nigeria rather, decided to discharge and acquit that case because Nigeria has no jurisdiction to continue the case. Now, after discharging and acquitting the case, what transpired were the decision by Malami, the Attorney General of the Federation, who overruled the decision of the appeal court. He overruled the decision of the appeal court and decided to order for stay of execution. And in that order for stay of execution, which led Nnamdi Kanu to be or still be in the solitary confinement of the DSS, not even in a prison. It is indeed a violation of human rights, a violation of the right of Nnamdi Kanu to the highest order. Now we have seen so many stories going on about this case. The judge that was presiding over the case decided to recuse herself because the case is basically going into a direction that does not make sense. If in an event where a court has discharged a particular case there is no way or any court in Nigeria should try that case, because it is discharged on the basis of the case or the trial lacking jurisdiction in Nigeria, because Nnamdi Kanu was still technically in Kenya. Therefore, on the basis of that, appeal court found it worthy that the case should be discharged. Yet, the Supreme Court of Nigeria, controlled by the Fulani system, the Fulani government led by Buhari, decided to order for the state of execution. And at the end of the day, during this state of execution, there was no other thing that Nigeria government were able to present that will back up their state of execution, because there is nothing that was presented to the court to back up this state of execution that Nnamdi Kanu is actually still in the solitary confinement, even when he is a free man. Okay, in this event, you look at the event, the previous administration passed this case over to the current administration just because they know that Nnamdi Kanu is the person who has the voice, has the, what it takes to expose every atrocities, every corruption that is done by any administration in Nigeria. He has what it takes to expose any government official in position of power in Nigeria. Because of that, that is the only reason why he is being prejudiced against, the only reason why he is kept in a solitary confinement today, because Nigeria does not want any individual who will have right to speak up against the corruption of the government, because the government of Nigeria believe that it is above the law and can do anything they want against any individual who exercise their freedom of expression and freedom of speech. That's why Nnamdi Kanu's right is being violated, because there is no court that has a jurisdiction. Immediately extraordinary rendition becomes in the middle of the matter. Because the court found Nnamdi Kanu to be forcibly taken from Kenya into Nigeria, which violates international treaty. It violates international treaty. You cannot commit a crime in order to come and say that you want to actually stop a crime or you cannot use a crime to defend. One moment. For those of you who cannot see my face, when I pause, I am having some issues with my gadget. We are going to get there, of course. Those of you who cannot see my face on TikTok, we are having some issues with our gadget because our face is basically on Facebook. Those who want to watch the video can basically join us on Facebook. If you're watching on TikTok, welcome. Stay there. So, but we are having challenges. This is the first time this is happening, but there's no problem, and it is basically distracting me. So, when extraordinary rendition is perceived, it simply means that an individual is forcefully taken from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction without a proper channel being followed. So Nnamdi Kanu was that individual who was taken from Kenya to Nigeria off the book without following the extradition rules, which supposed to give Nnamdi Kanu a trial in Kenya to ascertain whether or not Nnamdi Kanu will be actually receiving a fair trial in Nigeria, but that was not the case. And immediately when Supreme Court of Nigeria actually perceived that there was a extraordinary rendition in the case of Nnamdi Kanu, they actually discharged and acquitted him from every charges leveled against him, saying that Nigeria has no jurisdiction to continue with that matter, that there is no court in Nigeria that has jurisdiction to continue with that matter. Appeal Court of Nigeria ruled that Nigeria has no jurisdiction to try Nnamdi Kanu due to the circumstance of his return. Isn't that the judgment passed by the Appeal Court of Nigeria? That was the judgment. Now today, Nnamdi Kanu is still in a solitary confinement. Why? Why is Nnamdi Kanu still in a solitary confinement? This is the question we should be asking Tinubu's administration. This is the question we should be asking every Nigerian. This is the question that we should be asking anybody that is actually in the world that understand the law and understand the importance of jurisdiction and the importance of making sure that you work within the ambit of the law against any individual, because no individual is guilty until proven in the court of law. It is only the court of law that will declare you guilty or not. Before appearing to the court, you are perceived to be innocent until proven in the court of law. In the matter of Nnamdi Kanu, he was kidnapped, tortured, extraordinary rendition. Technically, he was still in Kenya. Therefore, there is no jurisdiction to continue with that matter in Nigeria when the court of competent jurisdiction actually ascertained the information regarding the forcible of rendition of the book. They declared the case discharged and acquitted. Yet, the government of the day decided to ignore the call of the Appeal Court of Nigeria, because this can only mean that there is no rule of law, there is no justice system in Nigeria. That's what this actually entails, because if there is a rule of law in Nigeria, the rule of law must be protected. The court of law decisions must be respected by every or any arms of government that have interest in any matter concerning individual, organization, or anybody in a country. You see the reason why sometimes when we call this country a zoo, some of you get mad because we call it a zoo, but the reason why we call it a zoo is that in a zoo is a place where animals fend for themselves, survival of the fittest. There is no law that governs animals who you are going to actually use as a prey or not. Every animal prey on their, on the lesser animal. So in this situation, that's why you find us calling it a zoo. It is not because we are disrespectful of the against the sovereignty of the country, but it is actually the reality of what is going on in the country. That's why we call it a zoo. A nation that does not respect the rule of law is not a nation. There is no nation under democratic dispensation that does not respect the rule of law. There is no nation. Absolutely no nation. If you cannot even adhere to the international legal standard and norms. Going through extraordinary rendition is basically violating this international legal standard and norms, which Nigeria government did against Nnamdi Kanu. Now, Nigeria does not have a legal ground to continue to hold Nnamdi Kanu in a custody. As long as he has no jurisdiction to try the case, they have no moral or legal ground that permits them to hold Nnamdi Kanu. Because the rendition, extraordinary rendition, contravene treaties such as the United Nations Convention Against Torture and the Convention on the Right of a Child or an individual. It contravenes such law. Because even in Nigeria Constitution itself, you will find that Section 36 of Nigeria Constitution grants every individual right to a fair hearing. Every individual right to a fair hearing, regardless of your religious belief, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your political affiliation, you have right to a fair hearing. Doesn't Nnamdi Kanu's right to fair hearing, is it respected? The answer is no. Why is it not respected? We have three arms of government under Nigeria's democracy. These three arms of government, there is executive, there is a legislature, there is judiciary. But judiciary is being controlled by the executive. Why is that? They control judiciary. The influence of the executive determines, or the actions or the whatever decisions of the executive determines what judiciary's recommendations will be. That means judiciary is not part of the three arms of government, because they are supposed to be independent against each other, independent of each other. Judiciary is supposed to be independent of executive. Legislature is supposed to be independent of judiciary and executive. There is not supposed to be interference from any part of these arms of government to the other. But the unitary system of government that they practice in Nigeria under democracy, which can permit executive to put their nose in every arms of government and make decisions on their behalf, and actually dictate what is going to happen in that department or in that arms of government. Then what is the essence of having three arms of government? That is the reason why we are perceiving that even the current regime under Tinubu's administration is actually trying to leverage Nnamdi Kanu for the political campaign come 2027 in order to use him to garner votes from the southeastern part of Nigeria. But we will not allow that to happen. We will not allow that to happen, because everyone in their right mind, in their right senses, should understand that him as a president of Nigeria has been declared as the most corrupt president in the world. Is he arrested? The answer is no. Is he in a solitary confinement? The answer is no. But the only reason why he is holding Nnamdi Kanu in arbitrary detention is because Nnamdi Kanu was the man who called anybody out who is corrupt in their position in Nigeria, and he knows, or he assumed, that if Nnamdi Kanu is actually not held in a solitary confinement, that Nnamdi Kanu will explain and bring down all these monetary policies that they are making in Nigeria and break it down and tell you the intricacies, these monetary policies that they have made so long, and who is the beneficiary to these monetary policies that is being implemented all over the place. Nnamdi Kanu will expose every atrocities of the government. So he is believing that releasing Nnamdi Kanu is going to be exposing himself and his corruption to the world. He is not holding Nnamdi Kanu on a basis that Nnamdi Kanu committed a crime, because the court of a competent jurisdiction discharged and acquitted Nnamdi Kanu from every frivolous charges leveled against him by the Nigeria state. Charges that was amended up to almost, I think, up to 10 times, or maybe. Charges that was amended each and every outing. They amended charges because they had no solid evidence on the charges, or they had no solid charges to level against Nnamdi Kanu, because he has committed no crime known to any part of law, known to any country in the world. Because he was in Britain, he was in United States, he was in Israel, he was in Japan, he was in all these countries that are well developed and understand what is called crime and what is called, innocent. They never saw Nnamdi Kanu to be a criminal or a fugitive. And which is what actually different, which is what makes Nnamdi Kanu different from what you call, whom you call Ekperima in Finland. Because Ekperima in Finland, we all know that if he was not guilty as charged, Finland government will not take him into custody. The reason why Finland government took him into custody, because he was using his channel calling for the unaliving of people in the ground zero. And for you to understand that he was not doing it for the benefit of anybody, because for his own selfish aggrandizement, that is the reason why immediately when he was questioned, as per reason why he was doing what he was doing, he made a claim that he was a content creator. How can a content creator have criminals on the ground that unalive anybody that he points for them? He does not know that the cyber securities in Finland were following him up. And he does that, he go to Twitter and take responsibility of what he was doing, because he knows he wants to tarnish the image of this man called Nnamdi Kanu. Because BBC, as a gutter media they will continue to promote his activities and equate it to the IPOB led by Nnamdi Kanu. Have you seen where this issue is going? Every action taken by Ekperima in Finland was equated to IPOB, led by Nnamdi Kanu. Because BBC, of course, we know that BBC headquarters is in Britain. Nnamdi Kanu was in Britain. Nnamdi Kanu was not considered to be any criminals in Britain or fugitive in Britain. All the time he spent in Britain, but immediately when he left Britain to Kenya, that's when the government saw a loophole. Let's go into this place, third world country, where corruption is prevalent. No one is going to question us. We do what we want because it is a third world country. It is an African country. We enter there, we do what we want, no question asked. We can violate every international treaty. It does not matter. No one will ask us question. We are going to take him to Nigeria and try him, not giving him a fair trial, as actually stated in section 36 rather, of Nigeria Constitution. Of Nigeria Constitution, section 36. Everyone has the right to fair hearing, which the right to fair hearing is supposed to start from Kenya. But it never. The right to fair hearing did not start from Kenya, because Kenya courts supposed to determine or actually whether Nnamdi Kanu, whether or not Nnamdi Kanu is going to get a fair hearing in Nigeria. But they did not go through that process. Kenya enabled Nigeria because they can be called the enablers of this violation of international law and international laws and treaty. Kenya were the enablers. Kenya, government under Uhuru Kenyatta were the enablers of this crime. Because if they were not the enablers of that crime, Kenya will not allow such thing to happen in their soil, because it is a violation of human rights and it brings bad name to the country. But it doesn't matter. Every individual leaders in Africa, most of them are looking for money for their pocket, not money to help the nation, not decision that will preserve the dignity of the nation. It is all about themselves and their family members. That was the reason why, under the watch of Uhuru Kenyatta, such thing took place. Uhuru Kenyatta never commented about it, because we know that Nigeria government was fully involved, and if Uhuru Kenyatta does not know about such thing, it will never have taken place in the soil of Kenya, because it is actually, violating the nation's territorial integrity. That is violation of national integrity. And no president will allow such. And no such act will take place without the knowledge of the president. So hence, that's the reason why we actually call Uhuru Kenyatta out at that time when this thing took place, because he was the leader presiding over the nation. And such thing wouldn't have happened if he was not aware of it. Yet the same week or the same month, they went to represent Africa. They went to represent their various countries to the hunger program, the United Nations program. Yet they violate the United Nations Charter. If every nation begins to violate the international laws and treaties, that means you can be picked up anywhere you are. You can be picked up, including even the leaders of those nations. If you violate anything, you can be picked up by anybody who finds you as a prey. That's exactly what they are actually promoting in this regard. That's what they are promoting in this regard. Let's assume that Nnamdi Kanu committed a crime because he was believing in self-determination. Let's assume, just like Nigeria government actually presented such case, that Nnamdi Kanu committed a crime because Nnamdi Kanu believed in self-determination and calling for secession because the right of his people is being violated. His people has been deprived been deprived of economic opportunities. The people has been deprived of right to vote and be voted for. The people has been marginalized. Ethnic cleansing has been meted on the people, and no one speaks until he rushes up to speak. Then he becomes the enemy of the system, because the system is always finding a way to fight against those who is actually fighting for their right. Nnamdi Kanu becomes the victim of the system. Hence, we are actually reawakening the campaign for the release of Nnamdi Kanu. Otherwise, every atrocities, anything that is any decision made by the president, we are going to analyze it to the public, because we know you do not have a media or a media house that will analyze the implications of any decisions, be it monetary policies that is actually being implemented in a country. Who is it going to work in their favor? Is it individuals? Is it the citizens? Or is it the IMF that create these policies that will enable them to be taking money and giving those people who does not know exactly how to run a nation, because they know that they are selling the country to these financial organizations internationally. They are selling the country to them and implementing monetary policy that will actually make the struggling individual in Nigeria to struggle more, those who are hungry to be more hungry. That's exactly the type of monetary policies that they are implementing. That's why they tell you that every transaction you made, you will be charged a cyber security fee. That was one of the first policies that was introduced by your president Tinubu, and the second introduction that he made, that concerning phone calls and SMS, increasing the price of phone calls and the price of SMS to 6 naira. So all these things are monetary policies. You might be looking at it and saying that it is in a small scale, and you might be looking at it and saying that things will get better in due course. How do you think things will get better in due course when you are struggling to afford your lifestyle? When you cannot afford 2-course meal in a day? When you are hungry, are you waiting for things to get better? When you are dying, you actually get unalive due to hunger and starvation. Is it when you believe? Because some of those who are affiliated to the present administration government, they will continue to tell you that things will get better, because the monetary policies is for the benefit of the country, without assessing exactly what led to the policy, who actually advised for that policy to be implemented, who knows exactly what this policy is aiming to achieve. Is it fighting inflation? Inflation is still racketeering the country. It is still racketeering the country, because every decision made by the present administration, it is never for the people. It is all about their own, benefit, never about the benefit of ordinary individual who is struggling in the economy of Nigeria. No, that is not. Now look at it. Nnamdi Kanu needs to be released. Otherwise, human right, when people begin to talk about human right and cannot recognize the human right that protects the right of Nnamdi Kanu, it means that the human right is a joke. It means that human right that we talk about is a joke. Let's assume that Nnamdi Kanu was a fugitive because he was actually promoting self-determination. Now, Section 41 of Nigeria Constitution made it clear that you have a right to freedom of movement. How about that? You have a right to freedom of movement. Why is the court of Nigeria not recognizing the right that the Constitution of Nigeria grants to individuals to freedom of movement? They violate Section 36. They have violated Section 41, which granted Nnamdi Kanu right to freedom of movement. Have you seen all these things and understand that Nigeria is not a country that respects the rule of law? It is not a country that respects the rule of law. If Tinubu claimed that he came to fix Nigeria, Tinubu will not be violating the right of an individual who was fighting for a betterment of everybody in Nigeria. He will not be keeping them in a solitary confinement, in arbitrary detention for that matter. Having seen that their previous administration violated international law and treaty that protect the right of this individual, yet you are actually holding this man in arbitrary detention because he never supported you. That's exactly what is going on in Nigeria, and you call that a nation, and you want us to be part of this nation. God forbid. A nation is a place where people's right is protected. A nation is a place where people's rights are protected. The citizens' rights are protected. That is a nation. A nation is a nation that obeys their constitution. That is a nation. But Nigeria does not obey its own constitution. Section 46, access to the court for the enforcement of rights. Access to the court for the enforcement of the right. Many individuals are languishing in the DSS, EFCC police custodies, and were not granted access to court for the enforcement of their rights in Nigeria. Isn't this a violation of your constitution that made you a nation? Isn't it? And when we call this country Banana Republic or a zoo, people will say that we are insultive, that we are miscreants. The country itself is governed by miscreants who cannot understand the rule of law, who cannot respect the rule of law, who cannot respect the international law and the treaty that protect the right of every individual, whether or not are presumed to be guilty. They cannot respect that. How would you expect those individuals, which their rights are being actually violated, to respect the dignity of the country? What gave birth to the self-determination? What gave birth to movement of secession? It is exclusion, lack of inclusivity. That's exactly what gave birth to what we are actually championing today. And we are not calling for war. We are not calling for violence. We are not calling for anything that will jeopardize the life or the livelihood or properties or intellectual properties in Nigeria. We are actually asking for referendum. We are asking for referendum that will enable us to independently run our nation and make policies that protect the rights of our citizens. Because this is what we cannot get in the current place where we are forced to be. Our people was massacred, ethnic cleansed, in the 1967 to 1970 by many countries, including Britain. by Nigeria as a host, supported by those countries, to destroy and actually remove the name of the indigenous people of Biafra from the face of planet Earth. More than 3.5 million women and children were unalived in that process. Yet, at the end of the day, they declared no victor, no vanquish in 1970. Every asset of every Biafran was seized by Nigeria government. And the only thing that was given to Biafrans as their reprieve after the war was 20 pounds. If you have millions of pounds in your bank account, Nigeria only made available 20 pounds for you. And we began our life with 20 pounds in 1970. And today, look at us. There is no seaport in our land. The oil that Nigeria is surviving on is coming from Biafra land. Oil refinery you cannot find in our land. The one that is actually, that allegedly revived by the new administration, you could only find out that it is for political ambition, not for the sake of doing something that is going to help the nation to thrive. Because if you look towards that angle, you will ask yourself, bringing back or resuscitating this refinery in River State, coupled with the refinery built by Dangote, what impact has it made in the price of your petrol in the pump? The answer is nothing. Yet, the government continue to make all this monetary policy, create monetary policies that has never helped anybody in Nigeria. And you find individuals, because they are political class or they have political friends, promoting the atrocities and impunity of this government just because they hate Igbo. Because Igbo man, regardless of the 20 pounds that was granted to Igbo man who owns millions in his account in 1970, Igbo men are one of the most successful ethnic group in Nigeria state. So, everything you see, the prejudices against Igbo in Nigeria is act of jealousy, especially found from those who are affiliated to politics that Nigeria plays against the people. "60 years of independence, 60 years of independence, you still cannot have 24 hours electricity. And you believe that monetary policy is going to just, someone wake up, remove the subsidy, continue to bring up monetary policies that is going to, make your life miserable, that you cannot afford to eat, you cannot afford to, live, and you believe those monetary policies that Tinubu is making all the time is going to elevate you from poverty and going to devaluation of Naira. You think that Nigeria, the monetary policy will eventually resuscitate the value of Naira. It is not possible. It is not possible. Nigeria, have you ever checked the trajectories of, if you have ever checked the trajectories of Nigeria backwardness or growth, because I don't see growth, I see backwardness. Check the trajectories. each and every new administration that actually assumed office, you are going to see deterioration of the economy. You are going to see deterioration of the naira value. You are going to see inflation rates going higher. You are going to see that. So the current administration does not want anybody who will rise up to speak truth to the power. That's why he is holding Nnamdi Kanu in a solitary confinement, even when they set him free. Even when the court of a competent jurisdiction has set him free. The court set him free, but the current administration saw that to be a challenge because they don't want to be told the truth. They don't want truth to be spoken. Now, if we go deeper into this extraordinary rendition, you can actually notice that Nnamdi Kanu was tortured. Nnamdi Kanu was tortured in Kenya before bringing back to Nigeria, and the torture continues because they did not make a provision for adequate medical care, because they have actually placed his life in danger. During the torturing, he had, ear infection. He had several medical conditions as a result of the torture meted against him by the Nigeria government in Kenya. Now, if we look into the Nigeria constitution, let us find out whether or not such torturing that was meted on Nnamdi Kanu is supported by Nigeria constitution, because we know that Nigeria has a constitution, but you find out that those people who are actually the leaders of Nigeria cannot or does not understand what constitution says with regards to a right of any individual. That is the reason why you find a DSS, EFCC invading people's houses without a warrant of arrest, without a search warrant. They will go into their houses, beat them up, violate their right, torture them, even take them to custody without presenting them to the court of law. That's why you heard a story of an EFCC who invaded someone's house and he got actually unalived like a criminal, because he is a criminal. You cannot just wake up in the middle of the night, invade someone's house, break into someone's house like a criminal, and you expect yourself to live. He was unalive and he deserved it. He deserved it. Even though we do not promote violence, but you cannot break into someone's house regardless of your power, the power that you hold in the law enforcement. You should go through the book and understand the right of every individual. You cannot go into someone's house without having a warrant. Even if you have the warrant, the right of such individual must be respected, because in every part of the world, in every constitution of the world, right to self-defense is non-negotiable. Right to self-defense is non-negotiable. The man acted on a self-defense because those people who are into law enforcement, the only thing they know is to extort money from people, torture people, put them in a custody without presenting them to the court of law, violating the section 46 of Nigeria Constitution, yet they claim they are law enforcement. Then people will come to defend the activities of such people, because it never happened to them. selfish nature of a person, look at that. Look at that. Nnamdi Kanu was tortured, which violates Section 34 of Nigeria Constitution. He was tortured. An extraordinary rendition, which nullified the jurisdiction that Nigeria is supposed to have in trying the case. But because of uneducated or illiterate who preside over your judiciary or who preside over positions in your judicial space that does not understand the right that protect, that does not understand the law that protects the right of any individual, be it guilty or not, they just do as they please. They place people in confinement in arbitrary detention. Because Section 34 of Nigeria Constitutions stipulate that right to dignity of human person, prohibiting torture and degrading treatment. Prohibiting torture and degrading treatment. Immediately when a law enforcement tortures you before presenting you to the court of law, that simply means that you are actually not going to be charged because your right has been violated. The court must basically make sure that your right is protected before deciding whether or not the trial will proceed. The same thing that the Court of Competent Jurisdiction and the likes of Appeal Court of Nigeria, they saw. They actually ascertained that Nnamdi Kanu's right was violated because you cannot commit a crime to uphold the law. You cannot commit a crime claiming that you are protecting the law or you are upholding the law. You cannot use wrongdoing in order to justify good doings. No. Wrong is wrong. Good, right is right. You cannot confuse the two. So in an event where Nnamdi Kanu is placed in a solitary confinement, even when Court of Competent Jurisdiction has set him free, it is time we start actually involving human rights organization, internationally, because the ones in Nigeria can actually give them whatever they want to keep quiet. To keep quiet. Where is Amnesty International? Where is Amnesty International? Because it is plain to see that Nnamdi Kanu is being tortured psychologically, held against the law. Held against the law. Because if we want to now check the case of Nnamdi Kanu that we have today, we had such case in the past. In 2005, there was a case where court have ruled against jurisdiction based on a similar ground. They rule against jurisdiction based on a similar ground. The Nigeria court is devoid of jurisdiction to continue such case in 2005. And such case where the case is a case of a man called Nwankwo v. Nwankwo. Nwankwo v. Nwankwo in 2005, where the Supreme Court emphasized adherence to the constitutional provision. Look at that. If we want to talk about the case of Nwankwo Nwankwo in 2005. It is a significant decision by the Supreme Court of Nigeria that primarily deals with issue of jurisdiction and the enforcement of fundamental rights under the Nigeria Constitution. If we go details on that case, the case involved two parties, both named Nwankwo, which often lead to confusion regarding their identities in legal discussion. The dispute arose from family matters, particularly relating to inheritance and property rights. The case highlighted issues of jurisdiction concerning the court involved and the application of customary law. So the issue of jurisdiction basically nullifies the case. Because immediately when a court does not have jurisdiction, trying a case that it has no jurisdiction to try is basically violation of the constitutional right of that individual and violation of the procedures of the judiciary. So in Nnamdi Kanu's case, we are actually well aware that who is holding Nnamdi Kanu is Tinubu, is the one holding Nnamdi Kanu because he wants to use Nnamdi Kanu for political scores. He is using Nnamdi Kanu's ordeal for political scores, keeping him in arbitrary detention for a crime that he knows nothing about. Even when court has set him free, it is now important that we begin to actually consult international, human rights organizations, just like I previously mentioned that the ones in Nigeria cannot be trusted because human rights organization steps in automatically when they perceive human rights violation, but the ones in Nigeria, you don't find them nowhere because they are super corrupt, and that's why we are going to actually start consulting the ones outside Nigeria. They lend us voices so that we will know, because if we depend on this government, they will never do anything to release Nnamdi Kanu, because it is actually, there is a rumor that they are trying to use Nnamdi Kanu as a leverage to manipulate the political processes in Nigeria come 2027. Of course, you are clamoring for Igbo presidency. Those clamoring for Igbo presidency, how do you want people of Igbo descent to vote for you when you cannot stand against injustices being meted on the Igbos, and you as a senators representing certain areas in Igbo land or in Biafra land, you cannot stand your ground. You as a governors, you as senators, you as lawmakers of Igbo descent or affiliated to Igbo presidency, you cannot stand your ground to call for the release of Nnamdi Kanu because he has committed no crime known to any law in any part of the world. They are holding him because he called for the right the right of people to be protected, which grant him access. The Constitution of Nigeria grant him the right to self-determination, granting the right to freedom of movement, granting the right to freedom of movement, also granting right to dignity and prohibit torture and degrading treatment. Where are those sections of the Constitution of Nigeria being recognized in the case of Nnamdi Kanu? This is exactly what every Nigerian should understand and know, that you will be the one whom your right will be violated against the order of the Constitution because you don't want to speak the truth. You saw where this right is violated because it is not about you. You are talking from both sides of your mouth. Nnamdi Kanu was calling for a referendum for people to decide what they are actually going to, where they want to, whether they or not they want to be called a Nigeria, which has had their independence in the last 60 years, yet there is no good road, yet there is no pipe-borne water. Your sewage, you are using latrines. Your sewage system, there is no sewage system, no infrastructural development, generator noise pollution all over the place. There is no healthcare system. The government of the day travel abroad to go and cater for their health, and you as an individual, ordinary person on the ground, your health deteriorates. You are going to die because you do not have medical care. And the ones that are there that is even ill-equipped, you cannot afford. The worst thing that the government should do to her citizens is to deprive them of adequate medical care, to deprive them of justice system. It is called a failed state. And that has been what Nigeria has deprived you over decades, almost a century. In the next less than 4 decades, you will be free for one century. Yet you cannot boast of anything. Not good road, not education system, not healthcare system, not infrastructural development, not justice system, nothing. You can only boast for the noise of generator. That's why people call you Generator Republic. You get angry. Because you are Generator Republic. Imagine a nation of more than 200 million people. The president makes policies, no one questions. One man makes a policy, no one questions. Yet power belongs to the people and power is given by the people. He makes a monetary policy that will actually, bring constraint, financial constraint to your struggling pocket, and yet you don't say anything. Nigeria passport is almost $300 outside Nigeria, yet no one says anything. All these monetary policies, where are they going? This money that the Nigerians are increasing in everything and realizing this taxation, indirect tax that they're imposing, and they are realizing it, where is it going? What impact is it making for the benefit of ordinary person in the ground? What benefit? Nothing. Because it benefits the political class only. It enables them, it grants them access to loot. It grants them access to loot. And when they loot, if the fund is not available for looting, they actually go to IMF because they have created an avenue that enables them to have extra lending by introducing monetary policies that bring financial constraints on the citizens that are already struggling. Yet you don't question it. Yet you don't know about it. You will just hear that the SMS is going to be 6 naira and the calling is going to be 18 naira per second or per minute. And you will say we will go survive. And you think it is high time you rise up from that your shell to begin to question every policies that is being made by your government, whether or not it is in the benefit or the interest of the people or the interest of the government. Because we are actually aware that the previous administration actually, left the state coffers empty. and has the highest lending or loan taken from international monetary funds or international monetary organization. They have the highest. Now this one has to create monetary policy that will enable him to access more loans. Where are these loans going? What impact is it having? You remove the subsidy that they claim it is almost the GDP of Nigeria. You removed it. Where does the money go? What does the money do? Why is the dollar rate still so high? Why is the inflation still racketeering the country? Why is nothing actually adjusting in the last more than a year of you in the office? Nothing has adjusted. And I know that those who believe in the administration will be talking rubbish. Because what Nigeria does is they lie to themselves. Because you have faith. Faith will never help you. Faith will always lead you to poverty. And that poverty-stricken nation called Nigeria, you can only get it right if you rise up to demand for what is rightfully yours. Question every policies that is implemented by the government to know which direction, who is going to be the beneficiaries of these policies that is being enacted or that is being introduced. Now question the reason why Nigeria does not obey their constitution. Question the reason why your constitutional right is not being protected. Question the reason why you do not have a workable justice system. Question the reason why in the last 60 years there is no good road. Question the reason why there is no infrastructural development. Question the reason why your president and your governors go abroad for their medical care. Question them. Because we question it, we never got the answer. That's why we have decided that we want to go on our own, on our separate ways. We want to go our separate ways so that we will begin to enact laws, implement, make policies that is going to help our people on the ground. And we are going to introduce harsh punishment that any political, office, anybody that is within any political office, if we find them being corrupt, their penalty will be worse than the penalty of armed robber in the street. That is how to mitigate corruption. Harsher punishment on any government official that is found to be corrupt. Harsh punishment to the extent of unaliving penalty. That's exactly what Africa need if we are going to get it right. How do you want the most corrupt leader to lead you to this era of development and to lead you to have access to the technologies of fourth industrial revolution, not just to have access, to benefit from fourth industrial revolution? How do you want the most corrupt leader to do that for you? How do you want such thing to happen? Nigeria president rank in the top 3 of most corrupt leader in the world. Why haven't you questioned that? It is a question that you should be asking. Why haven't you questioned that? A corrupt leader making monetary policies to get more money for themselves, because they are not making it to get more money to fix the country. Because if they are, there should be probably projects across the states in Nigeria, especially in the health sector. There should, Nnamdi Kanu is supposed to be released because He has committed no crime and the court has set him free. Court has set him free, yet he is still there. He is still there. And we didn't ever since, okay, the stay of execution, they established it back, they took the case back to appeal court, high court. The judge, the presiding judge, recused herself. Now, what exactly is going on? I give up to Nigeria. In fact, I gave up a long time ago. I gave up a long time ago. That's why we are utilizing this medium to inform the world about the violation of human rights, which is actually, violating of United Nations Charter and Geneva's Convention. That is violating human rights and violating the international treaty that protects law of extradition, that governs extradition and protects human rights activities. Yet, no international organization has stepped in, no NGO has stepped in, because what we know about Nigeria is that they are good in bringing out, to give out to anybody who will expose their corruption. We know that very well. And it is very, very important that every nation uphold the rule of law and international standards. Uphold the rule of law. It is important that there should be unified effort for Ndi Igbo, especially those who are affiliated to Igbo presidency come 2027. Show Ndi Igbo that you can stand up and defend their right and demand for what is rightfully theirs. Because if you cannot defend what is rightfully yours, if you cannot defend one only Igbo who speak for Ndi Igbo, and at the end of the day you want Ndi Igbo to support you in your ambition in the name of Igbo presidency come 2027, you should be able to show Ndi Igbo that you can fight for them, you can defend them, you can defend them against all odds. That's why you could be a candidate that they will actually think about in the names or in an event where you emerge as a candidate to Igbo presidency, which is actually at the bottom list of what we want. We are looking for disintegration of the system that kept more than 200 million people together from different ethnic groups together, and continue to remind them to preach peace and unity that has never been in the last 60 years of independence. Continue to preach to you your diversity is your strength when your diversity becomes your demise. Continue to preach a unitary system of government, that one man will have such power in a black society, which we have seen over these decades, that under democracy, every leader that assumed the position of leadership, they have been selfish. And one man, unitary system of government that dictates for every arms of government in the country. You grant him that power to govern and to make decisions on your behalf. Shame on you. Shame on you. That's why we are calling for total secession from that system. We do not want to be part of that system. And we are actually calling on that through a democratic process, referendum. Let people decide whether or not they still want to be called Nigeria. Right to, right to freedom of self-determination. This is where I am going to leave this until we meet again. It is important for everybody, anybody who understands the importance of human rights, to rise up in solidarity with Nnamdi Kanu and rise up to question this administration on the reason why he kept Nnamdi Kanu in a solitary confinement up until now, since the takeover from the Buhari's administration. And now you ask yourself, we have seen every president in every nation. After a president becomes a president, when they actually hand over their presidency, we still see them in the media. We still see them, advising, and be presented in the media space. We still see them active, trying to do something that will enable the country to move forward. But why is it that your previous leader, Buhari, no one knows his whereabouts. No one knows where he is. I haven't seen him again. Does that mean that they claim that he died in 2018 and he was cloned? His clone was tired of wearing the mask. Think about it. Where is Buhari? Does it mean because he's no longer a president, he is still going to be addressed as President Buhari? Where is he? Nowhere to be seen, right? Because probably he was never Buhari that ruled over you since 2018. Probably. That's why we call you a zoo country. A zoo country who cannot call for accountability. No accountability. That's why you call it a zoo nation. Where is Buhari? Oh, God help us. God help us. I am going to leave it here. God help us. Until we meet again, guys. Stay safe. And I don't know that there is something I've been coming across on social media about Very Dark Man. What did Very Dark Man do? Because I know I haven't been active on social media and Facebook mostly, not even on social media, on the aspect of gossip and or following bloggers. I haven't been active. I don't know what was the offense of Very Dark Man. Is there anything he did? Because I've been trying to see. They said there was a video he made. Can someone send me the link to that video, please? If you may, send me the link to the video of Very Dark Man, so that we will actually know the angle Very Dark Man is coming from. Because we cannot join force to actually, prosecute someone we do not know their activities. We must analyze their activities in order to ascertain a response, if need be, that will be given to Very Dark Man. But if indeed Very Dark Man has changed his activities to oppressing the oppressed, of course, the oppressed will basically give him a befitting response. But first of all, we must know the angle where Very Dark Man is coming from. Please, if anyone has the link to that video, kindly send it to my inbox so that we will actually check that video out to see what Very Dark Man did before we will decide whether or not we can respond to him. We know that the media platforms, when we talk issues sensitive as what we have just discussed, it is always a challenge, but it will not deter us. We continue to move. Especially Facebook. Censorship. They censor the information. But we're used to that. Until we meet again. Bye for now.